My name is Ryan, 28 years old, and I had just landed in Portland, Oregon after a gut-wrenching breakup back in Chicago. One stormy night, desperate to escape a crowded bar filled with hollow laughter, I called an Uber. The driver, Mia, was around 35, dressed in a black leather jacket, her eyes sharp yet inviting. We got caught in a downpour, the GPS failed, and instead of sitting in awkward silence, Mia poured peppermint tea from a thermos and offered me a cup. As the rain pounded the car, we opened up about heartbreak, about starting over, about the weight of lives we'd left behind. Then she said, "Want to swing by my place? Just to talk, nothing weird." I said yes, and from that single fleeting moment, a random ride spun into a story I never could have dreamed of. This is how I went from a stranger in the back seat to the guy waking up next to Mia every morning. Portland in November was a different kind of cold, wet, heavy, clinging to your skin like a second layer. It wasn't like the sharp, dry chill of Chicago winters I'd grown up with. The rain here didn't just fall, it consumed, turning streets into rivers and skies into gray curtains. I'd been in the city for 2 months, working remotely as a UI/UX designer for a tech startup. The job was fine, decent pay, flexible hours, but it wasn't enough to drown out the noise in my head. My breakup with Lauren, my girlfriend of 4 years, had left me reeling. She called it running out of spark, a polite way of saying she didn't see me in her future anymore. I didn't hate her for it, but the words cut deeper than I'd expected, leaving a wound I couldn't quite stitch shut. That Thursday night, I dragged myself to a networking event downtown, the kind where people slap on name tags and fake confidence like it's a costume. I wore a navy blue dress shirt, hoping to blend in, maybe make a connection that would anchor me to this new city. But after one lukewarm beer and a string of shallow conversations, I was done. The room buzzed with forced laughter and buzzwords: synergy, pivot, disrupt, and I felt like an alien, watching a species I didn't belong to. I stood by a window, staring at the rain-slicked streets below, and checked my watch. Barely 9 p.m. I couldn't take another minute. Grabbing my jacket, I slipped out without saying goodbye to anyone. Outside, the rain was relentless, a northwest deluge that soaked through my shoes in seconds. I hadn't brought an umbrella, and my car was parked nearly a mile away, a decision I was now cursing. Not wanting to trudge through the storm, I opened the Uber app, my fingers fumbling on the wet screen. A driver accepted the ride almost instantly, and I huddled under a shop awning, watching the rain carve paths down the sidewalk. A few minutes later, a gray Honda Civic pulled up, its headlights cutting through the mist. The window rolled down, and I saw Mia. She wasn't what I expected. Most Uber drivers I'd met were either college kids with earbuds or middle-aged guys with tired eyes. Mia was different, around 35, her brown hair tied up in a loose bun, wearing a black leather jacket over a gray sweater. Her eyes were sharp, like she could read you in a glance, but there was a warmth to them, a quiet invitation. "Ryan," she called, her voice low but clear over the sound of the rain. I nodded, hurrying to the back seat, muttering a quick thanks as I slid in. The car was clean, with a faint scent of peppermint lingering in the air. No radio blared, no phone was propped up with a navigation app screaming directions. Just the rhythmic patter of rain on the roof and the soft hum of the engine. Mia adjusted her rearview mirror, glanced at me briefly, and pulled onto the road. "Rough night?" she asked, her eyes on the street ahead. Her tone was casual, not probing, like she was stating a fact rather than fishing for gossip. I gave a half smile, leaning my head against the cool window. "You could say that. Just a room full of fake smiles and business cards I'll probably throw out." She chuckled, a low, genuine sound that filled the car. "I know the type. I wasn't even supposed to drive tonight, but something told me to get out." Her words hung there, not demanding a response, but leaving space for one. I nodded, unsure what to say. There was something about Mia, her ease, her lack of pretense, that made me feel like I could let my guard down. But at the same time, it unnerved me. I wasn't used to strangers feeling this, the neon signs from bars and cafes reflecting off the wet pavement, casting streaks of red and blue across the windows. The city felt alive, but distant, like I was watching it through a screen. Then Mia's phone chimed, the Uber app flashing a notification. "Main road's blocked for construction," she said, her brow furrowing. "Gotta take a detour." She turned left onto a narrow street, flanked by towering oak trees, their leaves falling like golden confetti in the rain. The streetlights were few and far between, their glow flickering like dying embers. The rain intensified, pounding the windshield so hard the wipers could barely keep up. "Well, this is straight out of a horror flick," I said, trying to break the tension with a joke. Mia laughed, the sound bright and unexpected in the dim car. "Not horror, but definitely weird," she replied, shooting me a quick glance. Then her phone chimed again. She checked it, shaking her head. No signal. "GPS is toast. Welcome to Portland's charm." She pulled over under a massive oak, its branches shielding us slightly from the storm, and engaged the parking brake. Turning to me, she said, "We'll have to wait this out. Driving blind in this mess isn't smart." I checked my phone. No bars. "Perfect," I said, half laughing, half resigned. "Now we're officially in a horror movie." Mia raised an eyebrow, her lips curling into a playful smirk. "No horror here. Maybe a quirky indie film at best. I don't do jump scares or creepy basements." She reached into a bag behind her seat, pulling out a stainless steel thermos and 2 small ceramic mugs. "Peppermint tea, want some?" she asked, her voice soft but matter-of-fact. I blinked, caught off guard. "You actually carry tea with you?" She shrugged, pouring the steaming liquid into a mug, the scent of mint rising in the air. "For when I'm stuck in traffic or stuck in life. Sometimes both." I took the mug, its warmth seeping into my hands, chasing away the chill of the night. We sat there, sipping tea, the rain creating a cocoon of sound around us. It was strange, sitting in a stranger's car, drinking tea in the middle of a storm, but it felt right. Like we were in a pocket of time where the usual rules didn't apply. "Why are you here, Ryan?" Mia asked, her voice low, cutting through the rhythm of the rain. It wasn't a casual question. It was like she was reaching for something deeper, something I'd buried. I took a breath, surprised by how easily the words came. I was in Chicago with my girlfriend Lauren, 4 years. We had plans, marriage, a house, the whole deal. But she said we'd run out of spark. I don't even know what that means, but it meant I wasn't enough. I couldn't stay there, so I packed up and came here, thinking I could outrun the hurt. But maybe I'm just hiding. Mia stared out the window, the streetlight casting shadows across her face, highlighting the strong lines of her jaw. "I get it," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I bought a house with my ex. We thought it would fix us, hold us together. It didn't. He left, and I stayed, driving Uber to pay the mortgage, to keep a house that feels more like a ghost than a home. Sometimes I wonder what I'm waiting for. A sign, a reason. I don't know." Her words hit me like a reflection, echoing the questions I'd been wrestling with. Silence settled between us, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was like a shared breath, a moment of understanding between 2 people who'd been bruised by life. I sipped the tea, the mint soothing my throat, and for the first time in months, I felt like I didn't have to put on a mask. Then Mia turned to me, her eyes catching the faint light, gleaming with a mix of resolve and vulnerability. "Listen, Ryan," she said, her voice steady but soft. "I don't usually do this, but want to swing by my place? Nothing shady, I just don't want a night to end with me dropping you off alone in some empty apartment." My heart thudded, not from fear, but from a rush I couldn't name, like life had just handed me a key to a door I didn't know existed. I searched her eyes for any hint of a joke, but found only sincerity. She wasn't smiling, wasn't flirting, just waiting, her gaze steady. My mind raced. Say no, keep it safe, don't complicate things. But something in her voice and the way she looked at me made me want to take the risk. I swallowed, my throat dry despite the tea. "Sure," I said, my voice rougher than I intended. Mia nodded like she'd anticipated my answer. She started the car, and we drove through the quiet, rain-soaked streets, the storm easing into a light drizzle. Neither of us spoke, but the silence wasn't heavy. It was charged, like the air before a lightning strike, full of possibility. I stole glances at her profile, her face calm but focused, and wondered what I was stepping into. After a few minutes, but for once into the driveway of a small craftsman-style house, tucked at the edge of a wooded neighborhood. The porch light glowed warm and golden, illuminating the wet wooden steps. Mia turned off the engine and looked at me. "This is my place. Not much, but it's mine." I nodded, stepping out into the cool air, the drizzle brushing my face. She led me up the porch, unlocked the door, and I crossed the threshold into her world. Inside, the house felt alive, like it had a pulse. A wooden bookshelf overflowed with dog-eared novels and travel guides, a guitar rested against the wall, and a sage-green rug lay under a scuffed coffee table. The air carried a faint scent of lavender, mingling with the earthy smell of old wood. Mia hung her jacket on a hook by the door, revealing a simple gray sweater that hung loosely on her frame. "Wine or more tea?" she asked, heading toward a cozy kitchen with mismatched cabinets. "Wine," I replied, settling into an armchair, trying to shake off the nervous energy buzzing in my chest. She returned with 2 glasses of red wine, handed me one, and sat across from me on a faded blue couch. We clinked glasses, the sound sharp in the quiet room. "To anything but this rain," I said, aiming for levity. She smiled, her eyes crinkling. "To unexpected nights." We sipped, and the wine's rich, slightly bitter taste grounded me, pulling me into the moment. We started talking, the conversation flowing like a river, finding its path. She told me about a solo hiking trip in Yosemite, standing on a cliff overlooking a valley so vast it made her feel both insignificant and infinite. "I cried up there," she said, her voice soft. "Not because I was sad, but because I felt like myself for the first time in years." I shared a story about trying to cook a fancy dinner for my mom in high school, only to set off the smoke alarm and ruin the kitchen. We laughed, the kind of laughter that makes your ribs ache, and I felt something loosen inside me, a knot I'd been carrying for too long. I told her about Chicago, about the life I thought I'd have with Lauren, about the way it all unraveled. "I thought I was building something permanent," I said, staring into my wine glass. "But it turns out I was just building a house of cards." Mia nodded, her expression thoughtful. "I thought the same with my ex. We bought this house, painted the walls, made plans. Then he met someone else, and I was left with a mortgage and a bunch of memories I didn't want." Her voice was steady, but I could hear the weight behind it. The night deepened, and Mia stood to put on music, a soft jazz track from a Bluetooth speaker, the kind with a warm, scratchy quality that felt like a hug. The lamp cast a golden glow over her, highlighting the strength in her posture and the vulnerability in her eyes. She sat back down, cradling her wine glass, and looked at me, really looked at me. "Ryan," she said, her voice low, almost a whisper, "I don't usually invite strangers into my home, but you don't feel like a stranger. You make me want to talk, to feel something again." Climax. My heart pounded, not just from her words, but from the unspoken truth beneath them. Her eyes held a storm, fear of opening up, of being hurt again, but also a quiet courage. She was choosing to let me in, even if just a crack, and it hit me like a wave. I wanted to say something profound, something that matched the weight of her honesty, but my throat tightened, words tangling in my chest. I looked at her, seeing not just a woman, but a universe of experiences, of pain and hope intertwined. "Mia," I finally said, my voice shaky, "I don't know what I'm doing here in Portland or in my life. I came to escape, to bury the past, but sitting here with you, I feel grounded. Like this moment, this night, is where I'm supposed to be." I paused, my face warm, but I held her gaze. I wanted her to see me, the raw, unpolished version of me, the one who was just as scared as she was. She smiled, but her eyes shimmered like she was wrestling with herself. "I'm scared, Ryan," she said, her voice cracking. "Not of you, but of letting someone in again. I've built walls, and I'm damn good at keeping them up, but tonight, I don't want to be scared. I want to be here, with you." She set her glass down, her hands trembling, and I saw her take a deep breath, like she was summoning every bit of strength she had. In that instant, I felt a surge, not of romance, but of connection. Raw, unfiltered, real. 2 people, both scarred, standing on the edge of something new, not promising eternity, but choosing this moment. I wanted to reach for her, to close the distance, but I was afraid of shattering the fragility of it all. Instead, I stood, stepping closer, not touching, just near enough for her to feel my presence. "You don't have to face that fear alone," I said, my voice steadier now. "I'm scared too, but I want to try," and time seemed to freeze. I saw the walls she'd built, not crumbling, but softening, not because of me, but because she was choosing to let them. Then she reached out, her fingers brushing mine, cold but firm like an anchor. "Okay," she whispered, her voice a quiet vow. "I want to try." That moment felt electric, not because of passion, but because of truth. We stood there, hands touching, the jazz weaving around us, the rain a faint murmur outside. I didn't know what came next, but I knew this was real, and I didn't want it to end. My heart was racing, not with anxiety, but with a strange, exhilarating clarity. For the first time in months, I wasn't running. I was here. Mia broke the silence, her voice gentle. "It's late. You can crash on the couch if you want." I nodded, grateful she wasn't pushing me away. She grabbed a thick wool blanket from a closet, handed it to me, and pointed to the couch. "It's comfy. Sleep well?" She gave me a small, genuine smile, then walked down the hallway, her footsteps fading behind her bedroom door. I spread the blanket over the couch, lying down, the faint chirping of crickets outside filling the quiet. Sleep didn't come easily, not because the couch was lumpy, but because my mind was alive with Mia, her words, her eyes, the way she'd let me see her, really see her. I wondered if this was a fluke, a trick of fate, or something more. But as I lay there, staring at the ceiling, I felt a flicker of hope, like a match struck in the dark. Morning came with the smell of fresh coffee and baking bread. Soft light filtered through linen curtains, warming the hardwood floor. I sat up, rubbing my eyes, momentarily disoriented. Mia emerged from the kitchen, wearing an old band t-shirt and yoga pants, her hair loosely tied. "Breakfast?" she asked, handing me a mug of black coffee. "I made banana bread. No kitchen fires, I promise." I laughed, taking the coffee, its warmth grounding me. We sat at a small dining table, sharing slices of warm banana bread, the conversation easy and light. She told me about a passenger who tried to sell her on Bitcoin during a ride, and I shared stories of my boss's passive-aggressive emails, always peppered with unnecessary exclamation points. We laughed, the kind of laughter that feels like a release, and I realized I didn't want this morning to end. As I got ready to leave, Mia stood at the door, leaning against the frame, her eyes studying me. "Thanks for staying, Ryan," she said, her voice soft but sincere. "Thanks for giving me a reason to stay," I replied, meaning every word. We didn't exchange numbers, like we both knew this moment was enough for now, a perfect capsule of time. I stepped outside, the air crisp and clean after the rain. Walking to the bus stop, I felt lighter, like I'd left a piece of my baggage behind. The next few days were a blur of work, endless Zoom calls, design revisions, and emails I answered on autopilot. My apartment, a sterile rental with beige walls and a faint smell of old paint, felt emptier than ever. But Mia was a constant in my thoughts, her laugh, her vulnerability, the way she'd made me feel alive. I wondered if I'd see her again, or if that night was just a beautiful anomaly. Then, on a Saturday night, I went out with a few coworkers I barely knew. The bar was loud, with thumping music and overpriced drinks, the kind of place where you shout to be heard and still feel alone. I lasted an hour before stepping outside for air, the cool night a relief after the stuffy bar. I opened the Uber app, not expecting anything but a quick ride home. When the car pulled up, my breath caught. It was Mia, same leather jacket, same easy smile. "Well, look who it is," she said, unlocking the door. "Fate's got a sense of humor." I slid into the front seat this time, the choice feeling natural. "Still driving weekends?" I asked, buckling up. "Only when I'm restless," she replied, pulling onto the road. "You? Escaping another bad night?" I grinned. "Pretty much." We drove through the city, the lights blurring past, and I felt a spark of excitement I hadn't in weeks. "You hungry?" I asked. "There's a late-night diner I found last week, best burgers in town." She glanced at me, her eyes playful. "You're on." We pulled into a 24/7 diner, its neon sign buzzing, red vinyl booths gleaming under fluorescent lights. I ordered a cheeseburger with extra pickles. She got a strawberry milkshake and fries. We talked about everything and nothing. Marvel movies, irrational fears, the worst jobs we'd ever had. She told me about a passenger who sang show tunes the entire ride to the airport, and I shared a story about a college roommate who collected bottle caps like they were rare coins. We laughed until our drinks were empty, and I felt a warmth that had nothing to do with the diner. Mia pushed her fries toward me. "Don't let these go to waste," she said, smirking. I laughed, grabbing a fry, and knew I didn't want this to be the last time we hung out. Outside, a light drizzle had started, Portland's default setting. We stood by her car, neither of us rushing to leave. "Tonight was good," she said, leaning against the door, her jacket glistening with raindrops. "Yeah, it was," I agreed, my hands in my pockets. She reached into her pocket, pulled out a scrap of paper, and scribbled her number with a pen she kept in the car. "Don't let this just be a coincidence," she said, handing it to me. Her eyes held mine, steady and sure. I took the paper, folding it carefully like it was a lifeline. "I won't," I said, and I meant it. Weeks later, I texted her on my birthday. I was at a noisy pub, surrounded by coworkers I didn't really know, feeling like a spectator in my own life. "Stuck at a bar, dying of boredom," I typed. "Rescue me." 30 minutes later, Mia walked through the crowd, holding a single cupcake with a candle stuck in it. "Happy birthday," she said, her smile lighting up the dim patio. We sat outside, the cold air forgotten, talking about dreams we'd had as kids, mistakes we'd made, moments that shaped us. She told me about a trip to New Orleans, where she danced in the street during a jazz parade, and I admitted I'd once thought I'd be a professional skateboarder. We laughed, and I felt more at home than I had in months. Mia started to become a fixture in my life. I'd go to her place after work, crashing on her couch, then later in her guest room. We'd cook dinner together. Her specialty was roasted vegetables. Mine was a questionable pasta sauce. We'd argue over music, her jazz versus my indie rock, and take turns picking playlists. One night, sitting on her porch, watching the rain, she asked, "Where's this going, Ryan?" Her voice was quiet, but her eyes were searching, holding both fear and possibility. I looked at her, feeling the weight of the question. "It's already going somewhere good," I said, my voice steady. "I don't need to know the destination, just that we're on the right road." She leaned her head on my shoulder, her breath warm against my neck, and I knew we were building something real, something worth holding on to. A month later, Mia sat me down in her kitchen, the air smelling of garlic and rosemary from the dinner she'd cooked. "I've been thinking," she said, her hands clasped on the table. "I want you to move in. I still need my space sometimes, but I want you here, not just your stuff, but you." Her words hit me like a warm wave, not overwhelming, but enveloping. I smiled, reaching for her hand. "I want that too," I said. "Let's make it work." I moved in, bringing my books, my clothes, my beat-up coffee maker that I swore was better than hers. We learned to navigate each other's quirks. She needed silence in the mornings. I talked too much before coffee. She left sticky notes on the fridge with messages like, "Buy milk, and don't forget I like you." I started to feel at home, not just in her house, but in my own skin. Now, every morning, I wake up in a house that smells of coffee and cedar, with Mia beside me. We don't talk about forever, but we choose each other every day. It all started with a stormy Uber ride, a stranger's courage, and a moment we both said yes to. Life's unpredictable, and I'm grateful for every second of it. If you've ever had a moment that turned your world upside down, a chance meeting, a leap of faith, share your story in the comments. Hit that subscribe button for the Cheater's Diary, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next story of unexpected connections. I'm Ryan, and I'll catch you in the next video.